Support Name Explain on Patreon for ad-free videos, exclusive podcasts and blog posts, and to help choose what names get explained. Click the link in the description. A pretty common sight in the world of place names is places named after cardinal directions. We have the recently established name of North Macedonia, the long established names of East Timor and South Africa, and once upon a time we had West Germany too, just to name a few examples. Though what if somewhere isn't that particularly northern, or eastern, or southern, or western? What could you call somewhere that isn't in one particular direction, but you still want to give it a direction based name? Well, you can simply put the word central/middle in its name. I can't help but find this phenomenon a bit odd and something of an oxymoron. You're naming somewhere after where it is, despite the fact it isn't really in any particular extreme direction, though maybe that's just me being weird, as there are way more of these middle/central place names than you might think at first. They range from entire nations, to regions of the world, to human settlements, geographical features, and even man-made sites. So today, let's give a spotlight to these places that have direction in their names, but aren't actually in any particular direction. Like, can we count the middle/center as a direction? Let me know down in the comments. Though, where do these two words of middle and center come from in the first place? Well, the word middle isn't too exciting. It comes from the Old English middel, and in turn just comes from obscure Old Saxon, Old High German, and Proto-Indo-European roots, so not too exciting I'm afraid. Central is of course the adjective form of center, but center however has a somewhat more interesting origin. It comes from the Latin centrum, which in turn came from the Greek kentron. However, this Greek word means things along the lines of sharp point, nail, and even sting of a wasp. What have these things got to do with being central? Well, this word was originally used as the name of the sharp point of a drafting compass used to draw accurate circles. This point was used to create the center of a drawn circle, so the name of this sharp point that created centers also helped create the word center itself. Anyway, let's get back to places with these words in their names as opposed to the words themselves. And some of these names are pretty darn obvious. As well as a nation by the name of South Africa in the south of Africa, we also have a nation in the center of Africa called Central Africa. Well, it's called the Central African Republic to be more precise anyway. It should come as no surprise to hear that this nation is pretty much in the center of Africa, hence the name. However, when this land was first claimed by the French, it was given the name of Umbangi Shahi, named after the two rivers within the region, though it was renamed to simply the Central African Republic in 1958, just 2 years before achieving independence in 1960. Funnily enough, however, this isn't the only French colony of Africa to reference a middling position, except this one is the other way round. As opposed to having an old name and then getting a new name featuring the word middle, it had the word middle in its old name, this being Middle Congo, which was an alternate name for French Congo. The former French region, however, eventually became the modern nation of the Republic of Congo, and they share similar borders, so while it might not have middle in its name anymore, once upon a time it certainly did. We actually talked about a place with central in its name rather recently, that being Central America. This is actually considered a sub-region of North America, and it's the winding strip of land that connects North America and South America. It has this name as it is quite clearly in the center of the Americas. However, another name that kind of applies to this piece of land is Mesoamerica. What landmass is defined as Mesoamerica and what landmass is defined as Central America somewhat overlap a bit. I talked about it a bunch more in the Central America video, but the reason I mention it here again is that Mesoamerica simply means Middle America, so this part of the world has the words of middle and central applied to it. Let's stick with the Americas, specifically the state of California in the USA. Within the state is a huge valley that seemingly dominates the entirety of the inside of the state. Unsurprisingly, this valley is known as the Central Valley, as it's so central within California. I've also seen it go by the name of the Great Valley of California, because it is a rather great valley, though that name doesn't have central in it. However, there's also a middle place in California too, that being Middle Mountain. However, if you look at a map of California and where Middle Mountain is within the state, it's not really in the middle, it's somewhat in the northeast. However, it is somewhat in the center of the mountain range in which it's in, the Sierra Nevada mountain range. From the southwest of the USA to the northeast of the nation, in New York, we have the world famous Central Park. This massive rectangular park is perfectly in the middle of the island of Manhattan. Plans for the park were put in place in 1853, and its design was actually chosen via a competition of all things. Literally anyone had the chance to design this now iconic park. However, this beautiful park came at a price, and that was with the destruction of Seneca Village, an area of Manhattan at the time with predominantly African American and Irish population, which was torn down to make way for the park. However, somewhere with middle in its name and also another direction is the Middle East, which makes things rather confusing, that's for sure. How can something be in the middle and the East? Where the Middle East starts and ends and what is and isn't part of the Middle East is up for debate. It's not a strict thing. Most often though, the Middle East contains the nations from Turkey and Egypt across the Arabian Peninsula and over to Iran in the east. The term Middle East comes from a different time, and initially it referenced just the area in which home Mesopotamia in the past. When this term Middle East was coming into popularity in the English speaking world, there were also the terms of Far East and Near East. The Far East seemingly referred to the parts of Asia past India, while the Near East were nations like Turkey and Egypt, hence how this part became the Middle East. It's a kind of confusing and outdated name, but it has seemingly stuck around. Here in the UK we have Middlesex, a historic county of England. Though this isn't the only sex county we have here, there's also Sussex, Essex and the former Kingdom of Wessex. The sex in their names are a reference to the Saxons who settled these lands from Germany, and the land that Saxons settled between the South, East and West Saxons was called Middlesex. And the popular question is, why is there no Northsex? And that's because the Saxons primarily settled in the south of the island. I guess Middlesex could have become Northsex, though it wouldn't have been mentioned in this video if that was the case. And while there might not be a Northsex, what we do have in the north of England is the town of Middlesbrough. Why does this industrial town have middle in its name? What is it in the middle of? Well, it's thought that the middle in this name might reference the fact that it is the midway point between the two religious sites of Durham and Whitby. Now, while all these places mentioned so far have middle/central in their name pretty clearly, this isn't always the case. It's only once you dig into their etymology, you see how their name relates to being central. A great example of this is with China. While the name China itself doesn't mean middle/central, China's endonym, its name in its native language, does. This endonym is Zhonghua, and this name simply means middle/central kingdom. This name didn't arise so much due to geographic reasons, but due to the ancient Chinese traditional view that China is/was the center of the civilized world. And as you went further away from this central point, things got less civilized. This is just one of the many names China has had in its long history. Perhaps one day we can delve into the rest of these names. We even have an entire sea with middle in its name, the Mediterranean. This name is often simply translated into meaning the Middle Sea, and it's easy to understand why this is the case, as so much of the ancient world revolved around this huge body of water. To the likes of the Romans, a lot of their known world was around the sea, with it in the middle of everything. However, like I said, that's the simple approach, as the word actually has more meaning to it and is something of an adjective as well. We see in the word Mediterranean the word terra too, meaning land, so the name can be seen as middle lands too, and it's often seen as meaning inland/far from coast, which is odd as it's kind of weird to hear that a word that means far from the coast is also the name of one of the most popular seas on our planet. So the word can technically be used to describe any land that's far removed from the coast, e.g. you could call Belarus a Mediterranean country because it's so inland, though the concept of a Mediterranean Belarus is rather odd, that's for sure, so it's no surprise that the word isn't really used too much in that sense. Perhaps we should start calling the Midlands here in the UK Mediterranean to give the likes of Birmingham, Stoke-on-Trent and Wolverhampton a more exotic vibe. Somewhere that undoubtedly has a more exotic vibe, however, is Samoa, the island nation in the Pacific Ocean. Now, we aren't too sure where this name exactly comes from, but one of the ideas does have it relating to the word center/middle, with the Moa part of this name meaning just that. Though the center of what exactly? Well, it's thought to relate to the center of the earth itself. A traditional view on the island is that Tagaloa created the island and then created the people from the earth on the island, so these people literally came from the center of the earth. This theory also holds that the former part of the name means sacred, so the name as a whole could mean sacred middle/holy center, though I must stress this is but one idea of the many we have for Samoa's etymology. Another island nation is the Bahamas, which is secretly a central name too. There's two ideas as to how this name came about. One is that it comes from the Spanish Baja Mar, meaning low/shallow sea. However, the other idea is that it comes from the native Taino language words of Bahama, which is the name they gave the largest island of the Bahama Islands. This translates into English as large upper middle land. So not only is it in the middle, it's large and upper too. If this etymology is the correct one, then this could possibly be the nation name with the most adjectives in it. Though let me know if there is one with more, I haven't actually double checked that fact. While no longer the name of just one country, the name Korea, which features in the names of North and South Korea, is also thought to possibly derive from a word meaning center too. One of the kingdoms on the Korean peninsula in the past was called Goryeo, and it's thought that the modern name of Korea comes from this kingdom's name, and the name of this kingdom is thought to possibly mean central. Why that's the case, however, I'm not too sure. Most likely because this kingdom did include the center of the peninsula. So if this is the case, then the two modern nations could be seen as having names meaning North Central and South Central, which are rather odd indeed. And finally, I just have to talk about my favourite place with middle in its name, Middle Earth. And while Tolkien made this name famous thanks to his books, he didn't coin the name. It's a name that can be found in older writings too, like in the Beowulf saga. It dates back ultimately to the ideas put forward in Norse mythology, the idea of 9 different realms that exist on top and next to one another, and that the earth/realm we humans live on is in the centre of these 9 realms. It is quite literally the Middle Earth. So when it came to naming the lands that Bilbo, Gandalf and Frodo would adventure in, Tolkien simply plucked Middle Earth from his extensive knowledge of Norse mythology and applied it to his own mythological lands. Middle/center place names were suggested by Kevin Iger, and thanks to their suggestion, they will now be honoured as Name Explain's patron saint of middle/center places. Do you have a good idea for somewhere that's name could be covered in a Name Explain video? If so, then please consider donating on Patreon. Just $1 a month helps keep the channel running and earns you a weekly chance to suggest somewhere to be turned into a video, and you too could be a Name Explain Patreon saint. Thank you to all my patrons who support Name Explain on a monthly basis. Patreon is vital to Name Explain, and donating just $2 a month allows you to enjoy ad-free videos and bonus Patreon exclusive content. It also allows you to help choose what names get explained in upcoming videos and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you so much for all the support you guys give Name Explain. Hello all, and thank you so much for reaching the end of the video. Check out another video and subscribe to stay in the loop on all things Name Explain. You can find me on Twitter, I'm at NameExplainYT. On Instagram, I'm also NameExplainYT, and on Facebook, just search Name Explain. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.